Shh. Hello, I am Shimon Shalom. I come to you, the Beit Din, today in order to settle a financial dispute regarding Miss Rachel Rubenstein. Several weeks ago, I was driving along the road at an appropriate speed, mind you, when all of a sudden, Miss Rubenstein's car swerved into my lane and hit me. Apparently some schmuck decided to walk across the street without looking, causing her car to swerve into mine.
Correct. And the jaywalker has not been found since he fled the scene. However, I would like to point out that my car is self-driving and does not require or even permit input from the operator. All I had control over was putting in the destination, and the car did the rest by itself. Therefore, I can't possibly be held accountable for the damage caused by the car. Instead, the car's operating system must be at fault, and Mr. Shalom should be suing Aliva Industries, not me.
Well, what about the programming of the car led it to take this course of action?
The operating system is designed to minimize fatalities, and as a result decided to hit Mr. Shalom's car rather than the jaywalker, knowing it had a lower chance of killing someone.
Interesting. So overall, the car is programmed to take action that would cause the least amount of mortalities. On top of this, the driver also has no control whatsoever over the vehicle's course, other than putting in the initial destination.
Interesting indeed. There are many factors to take into account here. However, I feel we must first figure out what kind of damages are at play before we can fully obligate anyone.
Damages? What do you mean? It's pretty clear her car hit mine, so what's the big issue here?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple, Mr. Shalom. Since Rachel didn't damage you directly, but rather her car hit you, this means that the car can be sorted into one of 4 categories: the ox, the chewer, the fire, and the pit.
Oi, Gavolt.
Yes, well, we know it could not be the pit, as the car moves around, and the pit is always stationary.
Obviously, but what about the ox, the chewer, and the flame? Logically, it would make sense to say that the car is like an ox, since it moves around and kind of thinks, like with its programming. But at the same time, the car is not alive, so could it really be like an ox?
I doubt it, as it is this essential fact that separates the ox from all other forms of damage, the fact that it is alive and moves about. True, one might consider the programming to be similar to thought, but in the end, this mechanical code is incomparable with the real thought and free will that an ox would have to possess. So it would not be safe to refer to your car as such.
What do you mean by free will? Do you really think an ox has free will?
An ox's behavior is known to be irregular, not acting the same way in every case. This car, however, always behaves the same, always following the same set program with the same set of action. Therefore, it wouldn't be the same to say the car's programming is really thinking by our definition, since it is really just a machine. This also removes the chewer for the same reason, as both the ox and the chewer are classified as being alive.
So only the fire is left, and since it's the only form of damage that's not alive and moves around, and is therefore the most similar to our self-driving car.
Yes, and this is logical based on the car's lack of controls. Like Rachel said, the driver only puts in the destination and has no control at any point during the ride. This is very similar to the fire. Like Rabbi Yochanan says, one's fire is like one's arrows. Just like an arrow, once a fire is lit, it can no longer be controlled and could go on to cause damages. This is parallel to our case, as soon as the driver puts in their destination, they can no longer alter its course or stop it in a case of a damage.
Now I see. Since Rachel couldn't do anything once the car set off, it's like a fire that has begun to spread out of control, since Rachel can't control it once she has started it.
Precisely. And it is this fact that is important when deciding who is obligated in the case.
I still don't see why any of this matters. In the end, I did not do anything to damage his car. You said it yourself. I had no control. So clearly the people of Aliva Industries should be obligated for selling a car to a program that hits people.
Not necessarily, Miss Rachel. After all, the car's programming was only following the principle of pikuach nefesh. Since the car's programming was only based on saving lives, we could not consider it obligated, as it says there's nothing that stands in the way of saving a life.
This, paired with the fact that Aliva Industries did not own the self-driving car at the time of the accident, but rules out the possibility of making them liable for the damages caused to Mr. Shalom. In other words, when she purchased the vehicle, she should have been aware of the programming details. After all, buyer beware.
All right, I guess that makes sense. But what about the jaywalker who ran in front of me? Without their interference, my car would have never swerved to hit Mr. Shalom's vehicle. Can the jaywalker be held accountable?
You make a valid point there, Rachel. Since the jaywalker was acting irregularly and caused damages, we could hold him fully accountable for the damages based on the teachings of Bava Kama 32a, where it says, the man who had been running was liable since his conduct was unusual.
We can also fully obligate Rachel in this case. That is, Rachel was the owner of the vehicle that hit Mr. Shalom, and in accordance to our classification of the self-driving car as a fire, we learned from Shmos 22:5 that it is the person who started the fire who is responsible for the damages that the flames go on to cause.
We could also consider Rachel negligent and therefore liable for purchasing the self-driving car in the first place.
How can buying a car make me negligent?
Well, the Rush teaches that a person's not permitted to run in the public street on foot except at a speed when it's possible to stop at will.
So, since Rachel bought a vehicle that she knew she would be unable to stop at any point while driving, she can be considered negligent for her actions, and therefore obligated for the damages she caused to me.
That's unfair. No one could have stopped on time.
While we recognize that there could have been other outcomes, we can't rule based on what could have or would have happened. We can't prove whether something could have happened had the circumstances been slightly different. Rather, we can only rule based on what we know, the cold hard facts, which in this case was that Rachel was unable to stop when the moment came.
Exactly. So therefore, we can logically obligate both Rachel and the jaywalker to pay for these damages. Since we know if two people cause damages to one, they have to split the repayment between the two of them.
Excuse me, but how could this jaywalker pay for the damages caused to me if we don't know who or where he is? That is, Rachel reported that the jaywalker fled the scene immediately after the crash.
In that case, we're incapable of obligating the jaywalker, since we do not know how to locate him in order to make him pay. Therefore, Rachel must pay the full amount of damages back to Mr. Shalom. However, if Rachel could seek out and find this jaywalker, in that case, we might be able to make them split the damages.
Emphasis on the full amount. Remember, I lost a lot of money due to Rachel's negligence. Not only damages, but also medical bills and all the wages I lost while I was in the hospital.
Wait a second. Why should I have to pay for his lost wages?
Well, we know for a fact that Bava Kama 83b says, one who injures another is liable to pay for compensation of 5 types: pain, medical costs, loss of wages, and humiliation. In this way, we know that there's always the possibility for the damagers to pay medical bills and lost wages, and it's not as unusual as you might think, Rachel.
True, and we can also rationalize Rachel must pay in accordance to a commentary from Maimonides. According to Chilchot Chova Umazik, one who is negligent is liable for all types of damage except for humiliation. Since we only care about damages, medical bills, and lost wages in this case, it would mean Rachel would have to pay the full amount to Mr. Shalom.
Perhaps we should talk to Oliva Industries about changing this flaw in their product in order to prevent future incidents such as this.
In accordance with the Roche, which states people must be able to stop at will in the public domain, Oliva Industries should ensure the driver has full control of the vehicle.
So Oliva Industries should issue that an override system must be installed in all future vehicles in order to prevent similar cases of damage from occurring.
Thank you, Baystein. Now I can finally get back all the money I lost because of Miss Rubenstein's negligence. And more importantly, we can stop these horrible accidents from ever happening again. The roads are dangerous enough as is, so taking away a person's brake is bound to generate some issues.
So, my first question for you is, you talked about that it's out of their control, but a fire you said you came to an out of control fire, but it seems that her car was functioning according to the programming, that it was very much like an in control fire and not an out of control fire. It was like if I set a fire to burn along a certain path, like I'm doing a controlled burn of my property, and it burns exactly in the path that it's supposed to burn, which is what exactly this car did, is it burned exactly in the path that it was supposed to do. It was supposed to avoid the life of killing someone else. So it actually functioned within its programming. That seems like an in-control fire, not an out-of-control fire. So if you kind of explain a bit more about why you see this as out of control.
I see what you're saying in the sense that a fire will typically behave, and this car always behaves, according to its set programming. But the important aspect of it is that she cannot actively control it. While you're right, it does behave in a certain way almost all the time. It has that set programming. She cannot actively choose to stop it or change it during its course. It's that inability to alter it that makes it more negligent. That's the part with the arrows. Arrows will always follow a set trajectory. However, I can't alter that arrow's course while it's in motion, and that's what makes me responsible for the damages it caused.
So I wanted to first thank you guys for addressing the jaywalker issue. Very well done. In terms of our question previously, so thank you. And then I wanted to talk about the idea of Rachel being negligent, that she would be responsible for the damages because her negligence led her to even purchase the car. And again, I'm going to ask the same question you guys have heard me ask. If the car, which is the fact, was programmed to save lives, in what way, help me understand how Rachel was negligent in terms of these damages. She made a very safe decision in that sense of purchasing a vehicle that is working to the highest level of safety in pikuach nefesh, So how would she be responsible for negligence in that sense? And then, as an addendum to that question, where's the insurance company in all of this? If we assume that there is negligence in purchasing an automobile, which I'll accept that as a fact because we have to buy insurance, where's the insurance company not taking some of the responsibility for this if she's made all of the correct or safe decisions in that sense?
Well, I'll answer the insurance one first.
Yeah.
The insurance company, we didn't mention it, they would, even though they would repay for the damages caused to Shalom's car, it's also true he still has to make the monthly payments to the insurance company in order to continue to have insurance. So even though it's true the car is going to get paid for no matter what, someone still has to repay him for the money that he has to use to pay the insurance company. And I would even go further to say a car that's been hit before can no longer, like, it loses value. You know, you can't sell a car that has a history of accidents for as much. And so even in that sense as well, he's still losing money even though the insurance company would pay for the repair of his car.
What about her insurance company, though?
She is still repaying, it's going back to that same idea that she's still repaying her insurance company. Someone, the people that are involved in this case are ultimately still paying the money because they have to repay that money. And then going on to what you said before about Rachel being negligent, the idea that is in how you always have to be able to stop at your will, you know what I mean? So this idea that there's this greater value of saving a life, but it's negligent to not be able to be in control of your actions and what you're doing when you're in a vehicle that could cause harm. So that goes back into when they have to make those ethical decisions that a car may not be able to make. You have to be responsible enough to be able to stop at will and have control of your vehicle going over, like how we said, in the public domain. If you're running, you have to be able to stop at will. You can't run too fast.
So do you think that by making a choice to purchase an automobile that has its own self-stopping techniques, that means that she's making an active choice to not be in control? Or could you also entertain the idea that by making a choice to purchase that car, it is actually an act of control?
She's waiving her control.
You think she's waiving her control even though she's purchasing an automobile that has that built in?
Correct.
Okay.
It's her control over situations as they come, specific instances.
I think the answer.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Toledo High School.